Brian Peacock of the Locked On 49ers podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, Katie, it's a pleasure. I'm excited to do this. Pumped for the 2025 season. It's always brand new. Everyone starts 0-0. Only hopeful expectations for every NFL fan around the world.
Oh, that's such a good perspective. Okay, let's talk Niners. So, a lot of their big contracts, they get them done. Brock Purdy gets his money, George Kittle, Fred Warner. Would you consider this offseason a success for this front office?
Yes, this was sort of a necessary offseason. There were some big things to do, and I think they had to get the record keeping in order before they could pay their foundational pieces that they
Mhm.
wanted to pay. And I think it's pretty telling who they paid this offseason and how early they finally got those contracts done. Because
Right.
Fred Warner, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, foundational pieces, leaders on both sides of the football, all under contract, so they weren't free agents, but they got them done. These negotiations didn't last into training camp like we've seen in previous years, and I think it got those seasons started on the wrong foot. And I think it showed an effort from the team that wanted to get these things done and not go through that again. And it showed a motivation from the players, and I think there was a strong. I think it was a strong statement of leadership from those specific players that didn't want to have that hanging over the team because they saw what it did
Mhm.
to the team. So for everybody involved to get all of these contract extensions done post draft, I think was really important for the 49ers to have everybody there in all phases of the offseason ready to go and ready to cook this season and start this thing off on the right foot without those bad vibes that they had going into last year that, and those you could feel those vibes in training camp last year for a
Mm.
6-win football team. And it was like, that real? And it turned out, yeah, that was real. That was a cloud over the team's head last year
Mm.
going into the season. And they did lose some, starters
Yep.
in free agency, and they had to let Dre Greenlaw, who's a really good player, walk. And I think it was a smart move. It was a move they had to be done because of his injuries, and even though he's a really good player and he's going to be hard to replace, I just think that was not smart money spent by the 49ers if they kept him around just because they didn't want to lose him. And Charvarius Ward, I think, was in a similar boat. He's a starter, but they've got guys that they've drafted and developed in place to replace him in the starting lineup. Talanoa Hufanga has been a really good player, but John
Mm.
Lynch is like he's a Hall of Fame safety, and everything he's done at the safety position since being GM of the 49ers has worked. So if there's any position I'm not worried about the 49ers figuring out, whether they sign a guy in camp to be a veteran to come in and end up playing games, or a rookie that's developed, or
Mm.
a second year, third year guy, Jair Brown taking another step. Malik Mustafa looked really awesome as a rookie last year. They're going to have safety figured out. So that's not something that I'm too worried about, even though Talanoa Hufanga was, again, a really good player, but also had some injury problems. So you have to
Mm.
decide who you want to pay. And I think just from a cash perspective, they had to make sure that they had enough cash on hand and literally sold a portion of the team about 3 days before announcing the Brock Purdy extension.
Yeah.
Because you got to put all that guaranteed money in escrow, and it's a contract that's twice as big as any other contract they've done in franchise history to get Brock Purdy in house, who now kind of hits his Brock Purdy 2.0 phase as a leader and future QB1 of the San Francisco 49ers with no questions.
Dre Greenlaw, that was going to be my next question for you. I understand why they did it, but that was the only one I was a little bit surprised by because it just feels like that is a player they could use on this team. But like you said, I do get why they had to make that move. Who are some of your favorite acquisitions this offseason? So players you're excited to see could be draft or free agency.
Well, it's got to be draft because free agency, they didn't do much. They
They
added,
lost a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
they lost big names and big contracts, and they added some backup players. They added a backup
Mm.
quarterback in Mac Jones, who we kind of get to see what that's going to look like now if 2001 draft went a little bit differently for the San Francisco 49ers. It turns out none of the quarterbacks were worth it for the Niners trading up, but they found their guy the next year in Brock
Yeah.
Purdy. And sort of going back to the draft is one of the big things that is like that's going to make or break this season for the 49ers. You love
Mm.
Robert Saleh coming back, but he's got his work cut out for him because the Niners are going to start 3 at minimum and potentially 5 or 6 rookies on defense
Mm.
at some point this season. That's not a recipe for success in the NFL, right? And not only do I host Locked On 49ers here on the network, I do the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, myself and Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. We break down the entire league every day. And since the draft has happened this week, we started to do some look backs and reviews and regrades of some past drafts because, as they say, you need 3 years to really grade a draft. So we went back and we looked at the 2022 draft. We looked at the 2021 draft.
Mm.
And it's it's really good perspective, especially post draft. And I talked about every team being 0-0, and every fan out there thinks that they drafted 7 Hall of Famers with their, most recent draft class. And you look back, you're like, man, half of the first rounders 3 years ago have done nothing in the NFL, like nothing at all. And so that's the reality. And so when you look at it through that lens, the 49ers this is a balancing act. And I think there were some past decisions that they're paying for this offseason, and they've forced themselves into the corner where Michael Williams and Alfred Collins and fourth rounder CJ West and third rounders Nick Martin at linebacker, Upton Stout at nickel, like these guys are going to, if not start, play huge roles, and
Yep.
probably at least 3 and maybe all 5 of them are going to end up starting when you talk about their nickel defense out there in week 1. So that's a lot to ask from a rookie class. And while it's really exciting and they're all very talented players, you can see how that could go wrong pretty easy as well.
Quick pause. If you haven't subscribed to the BetCanada YouTube channel, you can do so below. It's free. It helps support our channel so we can keep bringing you NFL and NHL content. Now, back to the show. Yeah, no pressure, rookies. What are the biggest holes you see on this roster right now?
I would say depth. Depth
Okay.
is because look, you're counting on rookies to start. So if you're counting on rookies
Yeah.
to start, then that means you are that the rookies are better than the veterans that are backing them up too, right? And so that's a slippery slope. And will those guys be ready to play? If the rookies aren't ready to play, then that means you probably have a backup caliber player already starting for you, and then it kind of goes in that direction. So depth is a big problem, and I would point to wide receiver and offensive line with that depth. Now, when you start to project the middle of the season, as long as Brandon Ayuk comes back healthy and close to his former self by Halloween, Ricky Pearsall is probably the guy you would project to take the biggest step for the 49ers this year. He will be expected to be a starter from week 1. He was a rookie who was already dinged up in camp last year before literally getting shot before the season started. Unbelievable rookie season, roller coaster for
Yeah.
him on top of just being a rookie in the NFL. And 2 things that he can do, which is really important for a wide receiver, is he can get open and he can catch the football. Now, he might not be great after the catch. He might not be a dynamic downfield player, but he's going to get open for Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. Purdy and Pearsall have been putting in a lot of work this offseason, so that's a player I really expect to take a big jump. And then, Juwan Jennings is a solid player, and especially if he's a number 3, he can be a number 2 for a while until Brandon Ayuk comes back. But, depth and how that comes together early in the season with the wide receivers is something that you kind of side-eye going into the year because a lot has to go right still. But the offensive line, and Trent Williams is an older player. He might be in his last year. He's really not he's like the only guy that's still not really hanging around and working through OTAs and stuff. And he's a veteran, have no problems with that, and he'll be ready to go, but you just wonder how close to the end is he. He always misses a couple games. You lost his backup to the Kansas City Chiefs, Jalen Moore, who got a nice little payday, and the 49ers didn't draft an offensive lineman until the 7th round. And it's been like 4 years in a row where we're breaking down the 49ers draft and we're like, well, where's the offensive lineman? Where's the future offensive tackles that could start? And they got Dominic Puni, who was awesome at guard last year for them, but depth on the offensive line. They could, like, next year's draft could be this year's draft, but on the offensive line for the 49ers, where you're looking at you need 3-4 starters on the offensive line coming into the year because Jake Brendel could probably be upgraded. Colton McKivitz actually had his best season at right tackle. He's going in the last year of his deal. He'll be a free agent next year. So depth on the offensive line, starting a bunch of rookies on defense. Those are the 2 things that if we look back in the 49ers season didn't go great, those are probably the reasons why.
I got to bring up my fellow Canadian, Curtis Rourke, the Maple Missile. Have you heard that nickname? I am obsessed with it.
The Maple Missile. It was actually dropped in the live chat during a Locked On 49ers episode when we were breaking him
Oh,
down.
funny.
And I was like, love it, Maple Missile. Now he has to get on the field first before he starts earning those nicknames, but it's a great nickname. And
Yeah.
I don't know how often you listen to our show, but I always rail against how lazy people are with nicknames. Like, I don't want to hear people call Teteroa McMillan T-Mac. Like, first of all,
Oh, boring.
McGrady already existed, and it was already boring then. Like, I don't want you to call Aaron Rodgers A-Rod. Like, can we have a real nickname, people? So
Right? Yeah.
I love it. And he was a guy I identified early, like last fall
Okay.
season during the fall. And I told Eric Crocker, he's like, I found Kyle Shanahan's guy. And I actually have a tweet that is the Superman meme of Kyle Shanahan scouting day 3 quarterbacks. So this is back in February, and he's like he's like looking at Kirk Cousins, then he puts the glasses on, and it's like actually Curtis Rourke. And so and this guy throws with anticipation. He's got
Ah,
the guts to throw the ball over the middle of the field in tight windows, and I was like, "This is a Kyle Shanahan quarterback," and I had him in my mock draft for the 49ers, and lo and behold, they
mm,
drafted him in the 7th round. So, love the fit there, the toughness he showed playing through a torn ACL. I mean, Indiana's a basketball school. That team was in the tournament. Like, I can't be overstated what he was able to do on a torn ACL, leading the Indiana Hoosiers to the college football tournament, not the basketball tournament in college, right? So I love Curtis Rourke. I love the fit, and he might have to take a red shirt this year, but I think he's
mm.
going to be a rock solid backup. And a lot of the reasons that players like Kirk Cousins and Brock Purdy have hit for Kyle Shanahan in the past, Curtis Rourke has a lot of those traits. So love me the Maple Missile, and he has a rock solid nickname too. So I'm on board.